officially the ancient Shiloh. Okay, this is where most of the archaeology begins. Now you should know that we have layers of archaeology because we're talking about 3,300 years of history. So what do you think this is? Any guesses? First I'll hear all the guesses, then I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you who's right.
Is it the synagogue?
Home. Synagogue.
Okay. So I hear some different possibilities. Are you part of our group?
He was guessing the pile of rocks.
He's guessing a pile of rocks. That's your guess.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd they find those square ones? A square pile of rocks.
Okay. The answer is not what you expected. This was built as a mosque during the Muslim period about 1,000 years ago. And what's interesting about that is that this mosque was built on top of these mosaic floors. You see them?
Yeah.
Very decorative mosaic floors. Now, those mosaic floors come from a church that was built in the Byzantine period, the early Christian period, which was about 1,700 years ago, about the year 300. Now, if you go inside this building, which we're not going to be able to do today, you go down a few steps and you come to where there was something from the biblical times. And they found the structure from biblical times. The lesson here is that the Muslims, well, basically every civilization builds on top of other civilizations, but the Muslims in particular have a penchant for building on top of other civilizations. And you know, this I wrote about in the Islamic Tsunami, in my book, The Islamic Tsunami, which some people bought in the store. If you look at the Temple Mount, you see the mosques on the Temple Mount. They built right on top of where the temple stood. King Solomon's temple, the temple that came after, they built right on top of it. The idea is to show the triumph of Islam and to hide the ruins of other civilizations. Garbage dumpsters were found. Muslim garbage dumpsters were carrying ruins from the Temple Mount. The Israeli army discovered them. They were trying to sneak out the ruins from the Temple Mount. I told you about Samuel, right? Samuel the prophet. Samuel the prophet, who grew up in Shiloh, he's buried north of Jerusalem. If you go to Samuel's tomb, you will have a very hard time finding the actual grave. Because there's a whole Muslim complex that was built on top of it, a mosque complex. You have to go down a lot of stairs to get to the actual grave. Another example, it's a little bit closer to home, to your home. In New York, Manhattan at Ground Zero. Do you remember the Islamic Center that they were trying to build?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, we called our congressman.
Okay, so the Arab fundraising project, the Muslim fundraising project that they had to build that mosque, it was called the Cordoba Initiative. Why?
The heart.
Because Cordoba, when the Muslims conquered Spain, Cordoba was the first city that they conquered. And there was a huge church in Cordova. They destroyed that church. They destroyed that church, and they built a big mosque, the first big mosque in Cordoba, Spain. They built on the base of that church. When the word got out that the Muslim fundraising project was called the Cordoba Initiative, then and the media started reporting it on a little bit, and I wrote about it in the Islamic Tsunami, all the details. Then they quickly changed the name. They called it Park 21. Gave it a nice, trendy New York name. Because they realized that people were discovering what their real intention was, which is to supplant the Western civilization, to supplant Judeo-Christian civilization. Somebody asked me earlier, why is it that Muslims and secular leftists seem to work together?
They all hate Christians and Jews.
Well, that is part of the answer. Okay, they both want to bring down Judeo-Christian civilization for their own reasons, but they're willing to work together now. So it's important for everyone to be aware of these things. Okay, so looking at this, if you see that big stone in the corner, if you come over here, you'll notice something very interesting. When the Muslims came here to build their mosque, they built it on top of the mosaic floors. They found a big stone that they could use as their cornerstone. And it has this circular design on it, which is of a particular design that was used during the Second Temple period. First and Second Temple period. So they found this from the ruins, and they used it for their mosque. So in seeking to hide the remnants, the ruins of other religions, of Judaism and Christianity, they revealed it and exposed it to the whole world to see. That they could not build their mosque without having this cornerstone, which comes from the biblical period. Okay, now we're going to continue our walk. Oh, by the way, this was part of a Roman road. Okay, so the Roman period, going back 2,000 years.